Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yep.
I'm really excited about this one. We've got this design thinking module. Um, and it really struck me how much design has changed. It's not just about making things pretty anymore, right? It's about tackling some really complex problems and driving innovation. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really amazing to see how design has become such a powerful force. It's woven into so much of our lives, from the technology we use to the way our cities are designed.
Absolutely. The module takes us on this journey through design's evolution,
Yeah.
starting way back with its very practical beginnings.
Right, exactly. Like early design was all about construction techniques and working closely with engineers. It was about making sure things were built well and functioned properly.
So it was really about functionality first and foremost.
Absolutely. But then things started to shift as markets evolved and competition increased. Design took on this new role, creating a strategic advantage.
So it became about standing out from the crowd, not just working well, but looking good too.
Exactly. Think about like a sleek sports car or a user-friendly app. That's design working to create a competitive edge.
It's interesting how the module points out that this evolution in design kind of mirrors the increasing complexity of our world.
Yeah, that's a really important point. We're facing these massive challenges like rapid technological advancements, growing global population, and the rise of megacities.
And those are not easy problems to solve.
No, they're not. Traditional problem-solving methods often fall short when faced with these complex, interconnected challenges.
So where does design thinking fit into all of this?
That's where design thinking comes in. It provides a new framework for tackling these complex, nonlinear problems that defy simple solutions.
And that's what really intrigued me about this module. It suggests that design thinking isn't just for designers anymore. It's a valuable skill for anyone navigating this increasingly complex world.
Absolutely. Design thinking provides a structured approach to understanding and solving problems, making it relevant for everyone, regardless of their profession.
The module introduces this core design thinking principle. Design think. Make, break, repeat. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So it highlights the iterative nature of design thinking. You start by deeply understanding the problem, that's the think phase. Then you move on to creating tangible representations of your solutions, the make phase. And then comes the crucial part, break. You rigorously test those solutions and you're willing to break them to identify what works and what doesn't.
So there's a real emphasis on embracing failure in this process.
Absolutely. You have to see failure as a learning opportunity. The faster you're willing to break your concept, the quicker you can identify areas for improvement and iterate towards a better solution. Then you repeat the process, refining and testing until you arrive at a truly innovative solution.
It's not about getting it perfect on the first try, but about constantly evolving and improving based on feedback.
Exactly. Now the module goes on to discuss two popular design thinking models: the honeycomb model from Stanford's D School and the double diamond model from the UK Design Council.
Can you tell us a bit more about these models? How do they differ and how are they applied?
Of course. So the honeycomb model emphasizes 6 key facets of design thinking: empathy, defining the problem, ideating solutions, prototyping, testing, and implementing. It's visually represented as a honeycomb, with each cell representing one of these facets.
So it gives you a holistic view of the design thinking process.
Hmm.
What about the double diamond model?
The double diamond model focuses on a 4-phase approach: discover, define, develop, and deliver. The first diamond is all about understanding the problem, gathering information, and narrowing it down to a clear problem statement.
And then the second diamond.
The second diamond is all about developing and delivering the solution, brainstorming, experimenting, and refining until you have a solution ready for implementation.
So both models, while different in their visual representation, ultimately guide us through the process of understanding the problem and developing effective solutions.
Precisely. And they provide valuable frameworks for organizations to formalize their design approach and ensure a user-centered and iterative process.
So we've established that understanding the problem thoroughly is crucial in design thinking. The module also stresses the importance of empathy. What role does empathy play in this process?
Empathy is absolutely essential. It's about stepping into the shoes of your users, understanding their needs, motivations, and pain points. It's about seeing the world from their perspective.
It's about putting yourself in their place.
Exactly. The module highlights this with a pretty startling statistic. 70 to 80% of new product developments fail, not because of technological flaws, but because of a failure to understand what users actually need and want.
Wow, that's a huge number. So companies are essentially developing products that people don't even want.
Sadly, that happens more often than you'd think. And that's where design thinking comes in. It encourages us to move beyond our assumptions and biases and gather real data from real people.
Can you give us an example of how design thinking helps companies avoid this pitfall?
Sure. Let's imagine a company developing a new fitness app. Traditional market research might involve surveys and focus groups, but design thinking might involve ethnographic research, observing users in their natural environment to see how they actually interact with fitness technology.
So it's about getting a more realistic understanding of user behavior.
Exactly. By gathering data from real people and truly empathizing with their needs, we can translate those needs into effective and engaging solutions.
So we've talked about understanding the problem and empathizing with users. But how do we translate those insights into tangible solutions? The module mentions a design-making phase. What happens in this phase?
This is where we move from the realm of thought to the realm of action. It's about transforming data and ideas into tangible concepts and prototypes.
So this is where things start to get really exciting.
You could say that this is where we start to see our ideas take shape and come to life. And this is also where the concept of a minimal viable product, or MVP, comes into play.
Can you explain what an MVP is and why it's important?
An MVP is essentially a stripped-down version of your product or service that includes only the core features needed to test its functionality and gather feedback from users.
So it's about testing your assumptions early on and getting feedback before you invest too much time and resources.
Exactly. Remember, we're embracing failure as part of the process. Building an MVP allows us to test our ideas quickly and cheaply, identify potential problems, and iterate towards a better solution.
It's like building a prototype before you build the final product.
That's a great analogy. Now, once you have your MVP, you move into the design breaking phase. This is where you really put your prototype to the test, gathering feedback and identifying areas for improvement. The module uses a fascinating story to illustrate this concept.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
It's the story of Paul McCready, an engineer who took on the challenge of creating a human-powered aircraft.
Wow, that sounds incredibly difficult. What was his approach?
Well, instead of trying to build a flawless aircraft that wouldn't crash, he focused on building an aircraft that could be crashed and rebuilt quickly. His team intentionally crashed their prototypes multiple times a day.
They intentionally crashed their aircraft. That seems counterintuitive.
It might seem that way, but each crash provided valuable data points revealing weaknesses in the design and guiding them toward improvements. They learned more from their failures than from their successes.
So they turned their failures into learning opportunities.
Exactly. And ultimately, they won the prize because they were willing to break their design, learn from those failures, and iterate rapidly.
What a powerful example of how embracing failure and rapid iteration can lead to breakthroughs. But the process doesn't stop there, right? Design thinking is about repeating the cycle.
You got it. The design, think, make, break, repeat mantra emphasizes that innovation is rarely linear. It's about continuously refining your understanding, experimenting with solutions, and iterating based on feedback.
I'm starting to see how this approach could be applied to all sorts of challenges, not just designing products or services.
Absolutely. Design thinking principles can be applied to anything from personal dilemmas to complex social issues.
This is fascinating stuff. We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to explore. I'm eager to delve deeper into the practical applications of design thinking.
Me too. Let's take a short break and come back to discuss some real-world examples of design thinking in action. So you're really starting to see the power of this approach.
I am. It's fascinating how these seemingly simple concepts can have such a profound impact on the way we approach problem solving.
You know, it really is. It's all about shifting our mindset. You know, the module actually shares this really interesting anecdote about a ceramics teacher.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So he divided his class into two groups, right? And he decided to grade one group solely on the quantity of work they produced.
So just how much they made.
Exactly. And the other group was graded on the quality of just a single piece.
Interesting. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, he wanted to see how these different grading systems would influence the students' creativity and the quality of their work.
That makes sense. What did you find?
Well, what he discovered was pretty fascinating. The students who focused on quantity actually ended up producing more innovative and higher quality work overall.
Really, I would thought focusing on quality would lead to better results.
It seems intuitive, right? But by focusing on quantity, those students in the first group were forced to experiment more. They had to let go of that fear of failure and embrace the iterative process.
So it's about embracing the mistakes and learning from them.
Exactly. And that led to more exploration, more learning, and ultimately more breakthroughs.
It's a good reminder that sometimes we need to let go of perfectionism and just dive in.
I think so. It's about embracing that design, think, make, break, repeat cycle and understanding that Innovation can come from unexpected places.
The module also touches on the importance of understanding those differences between users, customers, and stakeholders. It seems like a crucial aspect of design thinking.
Absolutely. It's essential. We often use those terms interchangeably, but they actually represent distinct groups with different needs and motivations.
Right? And failing to recognize those differences can lead to products that miss the mark.
Exactly. For a real-world example, let's look at a ride-sharing app like Uber or Lyft. The users are the passengers, those people who are using the app to hail rides. They're concerned with things like convenience, affordability, and safety.
They want to get where they need to go quickly, easily, and without spending a fortune.
Exactly. Now, the customers are the drivers, the ones providing those rides, and their priorities are different. They're focused on earning a decent income, maximizing their time on the road, and ensuring their own safety as well.
So the app needs to cater to the needs of both groups, passengers and drivers.
Right. It has to provide a seamless experience for passengers while also ensuring a fair and sustainable platform for those drivers. It's a delicate balance.
And then you have the stakeholders in all of this.
Yes, exactly. And in this case, stakeholders could include investors, regulators, city governments, and even the general public.
So it's not just about keeping those passengers and drivers happy. It's about considering that broader impact of the service.
Stakeholders are concerned with things like traffic congestion, environmental impact, the overall economic impact of these ride-sharing services.
So design thinking encourages us to take all of those perspectives into account.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that complex web of relationships and designing solutions that benefit all parties involved.
So it's about creating solutions that are innovative, but also responsible and sustainable.
That's the goal. This deep dive has really been eye-opening for me. It's clear that design thinking is more than just a set of tools. It's a completely different way of thinking.
It really is. It's about embracing empathy iteration, a willingness to experiment and learn from those failures. It's about approaching challenges with this human-centered perspective, seeing them as opportunities.
And using design as a force for positive change in the world.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on something the module mentions. It talks about how design thinking can be used to tackle complex social issues.
Yes, it's a really interesting application of these principles.
Can you give us an example of how that might work?
Sure. Let's think about the issue of homelessness. It's a multifaceted problem with no easy solutions. But design thinking can be used to approach this issue from a human-centered perspective, by first understanding the needs and experiences of those people experiencing homelessness.
So instead of just building more shelters, design thinking would encourage us to really understand the root causes of the problem.
Exactly. It's about going beyond superficial solutions and digging deeper to understand those systemic issues at play.
Can you give us a concrete example of how design thinking has been used to address homelessness?
There are actually numerous examples, but one that comes to mind is the work of an organization called Mad Housers in Atlanta, Georgia.
What do they do?
They build these small portable shelters for people experiencing homelessness using donated materials and volunteer labor.
So a very direct and practical solution.
Yes. But what's really interesting is they go beyond just providing shelter. They work with local communities to build relationships with people experiencing homelessness, and they advocate for systemic change.
So they're addressing both the immediate need for shelter and working towards that long-term goal of ending homelessness.
Exactly. They're using design thinking to create a more humane and compassionate approach to this complex social issue.
That's inspiring to hear. It's really encouraging to see how design thinking can make a real difference in people's lives.
It's a powerful reminder that design isn't just about creating beautiful objects, but about solving problems and improving lives.
I'm feeling really energized after this conversation, ready to apply these principles in my own life.
That's great to hear. Remember, design thinking is a journey, not a destination. It's about continuously learning, experimenting, and iterating.
I'm excited to see where that journey leads.
I have no doubt you'll discover incredible insights and make a real difference along the way.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into design thinking. I'm leaving with a fresh perspective and feeling really inspired.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, design thinking is for everyone who wants to make a positive impact.
I'm excited to see what our listeners create using these principles.
I'm sure they'll amaze us with their ingenuity and creativity.
So on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive for today. We encourage you to continue exploring design thinking and to share your own experiences with us.
We're always eager to learn from our listeners.
Until next time, keep designing, keep thinking, and keep making a difference.
It really is amazing to see how design thinking can apply to, like you said, everything from designing those everyday products to tackling those huge social issues.
Yeah, and it really speaks to just how versatile and adaptable this whole approach is. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. It's a framework that can be tailored to different contexts and needs.
And as we're wrapping up this deep dive into design thinking, I'm struck by that emphasis on human-centeredness. It's all about really understanding people, their needs, their aspirations, and using that understanding to come up with solutions that make a real difference.
Yeah, that is the heart of design thinking. It's about moving our focus away from technology or profit and towards people and their well-being. It's about recognizing that design isn't just about aesthetics or functionality. It's about making the world a better place.
Exactly. And that's what makes design thinking so incredibly powerful. It's a tool for positive change, a way to make the world a more, humane and equitable place.
So as our listeners are kind of pondering these ideas,
Yeah.
I want to ask you one final question. What's that one key takeaway you hope they'll get from this deep dive?
Well, I hope they come away with a sense of empowerment. Design thinking isn't just for designers, it's for anyone who wants to make a difference. It's a set of tools and principles that you can apply to any challenge, whether it's big or small, personal or professional.
It's about embracing that mindset of curiosity, empathy, and that willingness to experiment.
Exactly. And, I truly believe that anyone with that mindset can become a change maker.
That's a powerful thought and a great note to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been a pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations about design thinking, and I hope our listeners found this deep dive as insightful as I have.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring the world of design thinking. Apply these principles to your own challenges and see what amazing solutions you come up with.
And remember, design thinking is a journey. It's all about continuous learning and discovery. Embrace the process. Don't be afraid to experiment and iterate.
And most importantly, remember that you have the power to make a difference. Design a better world for yourself and for everyone around you.
Until next time, keep designing, keep thinking, and keep making the world a better place.